What a great book I have for you today. What an awesome book. One of my, oh, I say that all the time. So I won't say it's one of my personal favorites, but one of the reasons it is because I love to go to the library. I like the whole idea of the library. I like to sit in the library and read. I like to walk around and see who else is sitting and reading. When I was a young mommy, I used to like to take my kiddos to story time, and now they take their kiddos to story time. And they always walk out with a great big pile of books. Speaking of which, one of these was one of the ones I like particularly to tell. But before we start, before we make a puppet and tell and or listen to this great story written by Michelle Knudsen in 2006, so it's not a really old story, except if you're under the age of 16 or 15 even. Michelle Knudsen wrote this and Kevin Hawkes illustrated it. It's a beautiful book. It was a New York Times bestseller for those of you who like to know that other people liked it too. And I love it because of where it takes place. But before we start, I have a special guest today who has actually should take full and complete credit for the libraries as we know them today. When he was 12 years old, he became a printer. This was quite a few years ago because he lived in the 18th century. That's the 1700s. His name was Benjamin Franklin. Oh, you've heard of Ben Franklin? So he did a lot of stuff. He was an incredible inventor. He was around, and more so, for the signing of the Constitution of the United States of America in 1776. He was not only a great author, but he was a publisher. But if you asked, not quite yet, Ben, I'm introducing you. If you asked Ben Franklin what he did, he would say he was a printer because that's how he started out. He loved books. Yeah, Ben. All right, he's really anxious to meet you because I told him that many of you go to the library and some of you even have library cards. Well, whose idea was that? You got it. This is Benjamin Franklin. He is long since gone, but some of those great ideas are here every day. I can go to the library. When I was a kid, I went to the library. One of my fondest possessions, I hope you have one, is a library card. So I could go in, show my card, and take out a book. That was Ben's idea. You see, in 1731, almost 300 years ago, Ben and his buddies, a lot of friends, who liked to do what Ben did, which was to read, absolutely to read. So they got this idea that they would take care all the books they had, they'd put them together in a collection. And they started this thing called the Library Club of Philadelphia in 1731. Thank you so much. Do you know what the Library Club of Philadelphia did? It pooled together, not like a swimming pool. It joined together all the books that they owned. And then they would borrow them from one another. Somebody developed a card system so you could write the name of the book on it, right? And say when it was due. Even then, they gave them ample time to read, just like the libraries do today. And then you could bring it back. Those are the founders of the Library Club of Philadelphia. But, excuse me, wrong name. It was the Library Company of Philadelphia, much more formal. But some people, they wanted to read books too, and they couldn't afford them. So what they would do is they would come and they'd give the Library Company of Philadelphia a deposit for the book. And then they would read the book. And when they brought it back, they'd get their money back. So it was, in fact, free. And if it wasn't exactly free because they kept the book, they paid for it and then they owned it. So from that Library Company of Philadelphia came what we call the library systems today. They changed a little bit. Now we have computers. They even have puppet shows. That's the truth. And all sorts of wonderful things that we can do in the libraries. So if you haven't been to one lately, even just to take out a book, which is some of the few things we can do now in our libraries for a while, I recommend, by my friend Ben, that you go. Now, Ben was bigger than so many people, although he was little. Well, not exactly little, so I want you to tell you two more things that Ben did. Is that okay? He wasn't all that modest, so he wouldn't mind. For the libraries, Ben Franklin was 5 feet 9 inches tall, and some of the books he liked were on the top shelves. Well, Benjamin Franklin was not a puppet, so I couldn't help him boost up there. So this is what he did. He invented a thing called the library chair. And in the library chair, flip that chair, it could become a ladder. The library chair. Probably something he had seen in Europe where they did more stuff like that. So we were just a baby country. We didn't know all that stuff. The other thing he invented, I have one. So amazing. It was called the long arm. No, not my long arm. Some of those books were even too high up for Ben's library chair. So he invented this thing. We call them the grabber, but it was a long 8-foot pole, and putting it down. At the end of the pole, there were two arms, like that. Not your arms or my arms, but with levers. So Ben could hold that pole up, grab a book, bring it down, and give it to him. Benjamin Franklin. What can I say but thank you? Give me 5. All right, I'm going to ask you to leave now. Do you have any words of wisdom for our friends out there? Go to the library. Did you tell them how much you love to read? One more little Ben Franklin, just a tidbit. So cool. He loved books so much, and he liked to buy them. He didn't have very much money, so for several years, Ben Franklin, one of the best inventors and founders of our great nation, he gave up meat, only ate the vegetables that grew from the ground so he could save his money to buy books. Most people don't know that Benjamin Franklin loved books so much he became a vegetarian. Oh, way to go, Ben. Good guy. Take a bow. Can I hear some applause for Ben Franklin? Oh, that was good. All right, so because some people that are heroes of things, we call them the lions of the industry. So today's story is in fact about a library lion. It is not a true story. No, sorry to report, but it is a wonderful story. And you'll know why in just a minute. But first, the making of our own library lion. So lions are very big, and they do not go quietly most places, except they're not really noisy at all because they have these big soft paws. Can I see your big soft paws? So they could walk into a room, you wouldn't know they were there until they roared. And that was it. Big roar. Now, it is true you do not want to have a lion in your living room. You might have a cat, and that's a cousin, or lots of other animals, beautiful cat families, so pretty, so fast. Well, we probably don't want to bring a lion into our room. So quick and easy kind of lion to have. If you happen to be the kind of person that loves housework, you have one of these. This is a lion's mane. And what you do, now here's the secret about my dust mop. It has a hole in the middle. Roar! That's a simple lion. And then you can use it to dust, which library lion does in our story. Very helpful lion. Stick your hand in there, go roar. You can even get mad. That's a mad lion face. All right, library lion. What? So let's say you don't have a mop, or someone gets caught using the mop for puppets, and you always have to have permission, remember? I told you that several times, but here's one. Maybe you're a cheerleader. Wow. Whoa, that to me looks like a lion's face. Okay, excuse me, long mane. So who has a long mane? Is it the female of the species or the male? It's the male. So what could you do to make that lion's face? Well, hold on to this thought. Cheer me on while I introduce you to the easiest lion's face ever. Picture works too, by the way, if you happen to have a photo. So I do this a lot, and hope you remember. I did it for you in advance. I took the plate and I took the half, and I made a way like that. Now, The lion has a mane, so we can actually just do that. Oh, whoa. Could look like a bunch of things, but for now, he's going to be a lion. Think about the possibilities. However, I'm going to show you what to do if you don't happen to have a fancy schmancy gold pom-pom. I'm going to ask you to take your scissors. They don't have to be the best scissors. And just make a few lines here. See what I'm doing? Okay, just cut some lines here. Think about our main man, our lion man, and that will give him his mane, or his beard. It's very cool. Now, you're going to want some ears for our friend the lion, and you could take some triangles, because lions have pointy ears. Who else in that family has pointy ears? The cat. So take this here, mess it up a little bit so it looks like a mane. And that's a really easy way. Now, I know you have your markers around somewhere, so you can just take them, give them a little yellow tint. Most lions are beige, yellow, some beautiful lines. You might want to even take, watch this, a couple of ears for our lion, because after all, he has to hear, in the story especially, our story today, he has to hear the stories. You may not know this about lions, but our library lion is a little bit different. He loves to listen to the story lady. I think that's how our story got started, because I'm just going to put his ear up there. I may not do it perfectly, because I'd really much rather work with you to tell the story. And you can do this part later. Huh? So I'm going to put his stapler. His ears kind of stick up like that a little bit. Too pointy for my taste, but you know what we can do if we don't like the way it is? We can bend it down. And then it's much more feline. So if you note, our friend, the library lion, has some of his mane up here. And when his ears stick out below, there he is. Incredible. Oh my goodness sake. Can't see a thing I'm doing, can he? So that's your job. That is so your job. But I'm going to do it just so in case I decide to tell this story, using him for just a tiny bit. I should give him what? He has a very long snout, just like that. He has two beautiful eyes. And our lion has two very particularly beautiful eyes in our story, because he sees everything. And he's a very helpful lion. He likes to help the librarian. Such a good guy. There he is, library lion. So if you think you need some more here, could you add it? You can even draw it in. I think I'll draw it in for today. That's Mr. Library Lion. He doesn't have a name in our story. He's just a lion. But if you tell the story, when you tell the story, you may want to name your lion. You may want to tell your lion a story and pretend that you're the librarian, or you're one of the kids listening to the stories, which you might very well be. So let us start out with this lovely story. We have everything we need together. We have a lion. We have our great idea for this story. We know who we have to thank for the free libraries, tax-paid free libraries today. Thank you, Ben Franklin. The Library Company of Philadelphia from 1731 that he developed still exists today. And you can join them, and they'll send you lots of information and cool programs. So that is my unpaid advertisement. But now, The Library Lion by Michelle Knudsen. One day, a lion walked into the library. Paul, he went right past the circulation desk. He went up into the stacks. Mr. McBee ran down the hall to the head librarian's office. Miss Merriweather said, "No running in the library." That was the rule. "But there's a lion in the library," Miss Merriweather said. Is he breaking any rules? Mr. McBee said, no. Then leave him be. And so he did. Now, the lion walked around the library. He sniffed the card catalog. He rubbed his head against the new book collection, and then he went sound asleep next to the story corner. Then came story hour. No one knew what to do because there wasn't any rules about having a lion in the library or having a lion come to story hour. The story lady was a little bit nervous, but the kids were waiting to hear the story, so she read it. And the lion listened. So she read another, and the lion listened. And then she read another, and the lion listened. And then she was done. She closed the books. And the lion saw the closed books, and he saw the kids were getting ready to leave, and the lion did what lions do, and he roared. Oh, Miss Merriweather came striding down the hall. She said, there will be no roaring in the library. That's the rules. The lion was so sad. And the kids were sad. They said, well, if the lion is quiet, could the lion come back for story time? And Miss Merriweather said, quiet lions are welcome to story hour. And so, the very next day, back came the lion. But he came early. And he needed something to do. So Miss Merriweather said he could dust off the shelves. And he did. And sometimes he would get a basket and make sure the kids each had a book. And then right before story hour, he would fall sound asleep. Sometimes the kids would come and sit next to him or lay their heads on his back. And every day at story hour, along would come the lion. People got used to him. That's the way it was. Miss Merriweather always found tasks for him to do. If a kid couldn't reach one of the high shelves, the lion would stand up on his fours, and the kid could stand right on top of him and reach for the book. Sometimes he would bring a basket of books and make sure the kids had some. Miss Merriweather was very helpful. Everybody got used to the library lion, and he loved coming to the library. Now, Mr. McBee was always a little bit nervous about the library lion, but he hadn't broken any rules, so of course he could stay. Then one day, in her office, Ms. Merriweather was trying to reach a book very high up, and she said to the lion, you wait right here and I will hand the book down to you and put it right on your back. And so the library lion waited patiently, but the ladder was a little shaky, and Miss Merriweather fell right on her arm, and she said to the library lion, please, please, go get some help. The library lion ran down the hall. Oh, Miss Merriweather yelled after him, no running in the library. But ran he did. He ran right to Mr. McBee. And Mr. McBee wasn't paying any attention to him. So what did the library lion do? He roared. Mr. McBee was very indignant, and he raced to Miss Merriweather's office. She said to him, no running in the library. When Mr. McBee and the lion looked down at Miss Merriweather, they saw that she had hurt herself, and she said, oh, please go get help. And the lion was only trying to help me. The lion felt so bad because Mr. McBee said to him, lions don't belong in the library. You broke the rules. So what did the lion do? He left. Miss Merriweather came back the next day with a big cast on her arm. When story hour came, there was no lion. Everybody looked for him. The kids wanted him to be there. He was so helpful, but he wasn't there. And then another day passed, and then another day. The library lion did not come back. Miss Merriweather was so upset. She barely came out of her office. She had come to count on him. She had come to wait for him to help her, but there was no lion. Mr. McBee, who, as you remember, was not a big fan of the library lion, felt terrible because he knew that when he had said to the lion, "When you break the rules, you cannot come back," it was his doing. And so he went out looking for the lion. He looked everywhere. He went to the zoo, wasn't there. He went to the pet store. The pet store had a lion. He wasn't there. He walked all over the city, and he couldn't find the library lion. So he went back to the library, and there, standing by a side window, looking in, was the lion. And he went to him, and he said, "Sometimes breaking the rules to help a friend is all right." And then Mr. McBee left, and so did the lion. The very next morning, through the doors, walking on very soft paws quietly, was the library lion. Mr. McBee saw him first, so he ran to Miss Merriweather's office. He said, "The lion is back, the lion is back." Miss Merriweather said, "No running in the library," and then she raced to find the lion, who was sitting in the story corner, waiting for the story. As she was racing down the hall, Mr. McBee said with great delight, "No running in the library." But she did, and she gave her friend the lion a great big hug. And this is what I learned from that story. Sometimes there is a good reason to break a rule for a friend, even in the library. That is the story of the library lion, beautifully written and illustrated by Michelle Knudsen and Kevin Hawkes. I hope you get to the library. I hope you have one of your own. And even if you don't, there are ways to find them. Make your own library. Make your own lion. Do good deeds and take care of each other. And I will see you the next time.